Good morning. I will say a few words about my film, Bazin's film, that you are just about to see. The first thing I should say is that this film is part of a series that's called Places and Monuments that I have been developing for more than 10 years, and that involves short films, video installation, and Bazin's films is actually the first feature that's part of this series. Uh, this series those films that are in this series all have to do with, of course, a specific places where there is or not a monument, and how those places do relate to the passage of time. It They all have to do with remembering, forgetting, celebrating the past, or current day, present time, social life do relate to those traces of the past. So in different way, with different approach, all those projects that are part of Places and Monument has to do with that. And it is also the case for Bazin's film, of course. The other aspect of this series is more technical. It is the fact that they all involve original live action shooting in specific places that I'm interested in. Uh, they all involve quite developed digital manipulation of those images, and they all involve animation that's added to it to stress different aspects of those images. All of this system aiming at digging out meaning in those situations. And also in many cases, some drawings are added to it, photographs, uh, any kind of material, archive material, anything that it help uh, digging out the meaning. But the central structure is always this relationship between live action shooting, digital manipulation, and animation. In the case of Bazin's film, I should say now that the origin of this film comes from the fact that at the year of his death, André Bazin, who was a famous film critic in France at the time, uh, and 1958 was the year of his death. In that year, he did develop a film project about the Roman churches of Saintonge in France. Uh, so, but the film remained undone, and not the only thing was that's left of the film. They're a bit like runes. Uh, is notes. They are notes, little sketches, photographs. Quite a number of photographs, but that are not of a very good quality though, and text. And there's a text that this does describe the philosophical outlook that Bazin wanted to have to approach his subject. It's not at all. It's not at all screenplay, and it would have been an impossible project to try to do the film that Bazin would have done. First, because it's not developed sufficiently to follow those texts as you would follow a screenplay, uh, but but mainly because the situation of the villages, of the church, of the agriculture around it have changed totally. So if we follow Bazin's advice to get interested by the contemporary charm of those churches, even if you follow this advice, the contemporary charm of the churches is totally different uh, now or in 2016 when we shot than it was in 1958. So there is a time gap, a very important time gap between those two situations. And this is what interested me. I wanted to explore this time gap. Uh, Over this time structure, there's a personal aspect to it also. As any young filmmaker in the early 60s, I was very influenced and interested by the writing of André Bazin at the time. It was impossible to avoid that. So on top of this objective situation that I've described before, there's my personal story, my personal relationship to Bazin between then and now. That's involved in the film in an almost invisible way, but it is very strongly present because at the time I was very interested by Bazin's writing, but at the same time I came to understand that it did involve, in a way, a sort of rejection of animation outside of real cinema. And I resented that very strongly. And I should say that all my work was a fight against this idea. And I have realized lately, having access to more text of Bazin, that it was not quite the case. Many of the people influenced by Bazin had this quite negative outlook towards animation. And when you read closely Bazin, it's not quite the case. So there's this personal history that is also involved in the film project, in the way I have developed the film. So that's what I can say now. And I hope you enjoy it. And thank you very much.